Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and everybody else across the world, welcome to the first ever 12th episode of the Screen and Page Project featuring your hosts, MGK, and
Tayal.
he is representing the Houston Rockets for this episode, which is proudly sponsored by.
Argument. So, now introducing Argument, the world's first consulting service for your family arguments. Ever notice how management consultants get paid millions to tell the CEO exactly what they wanted to already do? Whether it's telling your wife that her friend is annoying, trying to keep track of the third cousin who got a divorce that your parents keep telling you about, or drafting that desperate strategy to reconnect with the ex, we package your point of view in a 60-second deck with footnotes, charts, and just enough jargon to shut down debate. Argument. So, because sometimes you don't need love, you need leverage. Call now and we'll throw in a free, it depends, let's circle back, and next step slide template for you to use with your in laws.
I,
We thank Argument for sponsoring this
I
episode.
can verify it works because now I found out that Tayal's wife finds me annoying, but somehow I'm not offended. Unlike those lion and tiger cubs that faff around with a live kill when they're training, we're going to head straight to the point. Now that the transfer window is closed and the Premier League has spent a record-breaking, I believe, 3 billion, um, we are here to give you our predictions from 20th to first for the 25-26 Premier League season. So, Tayal, over to you. Who do you think is going to finish in 20th place?
So I'm going to go with what I think is the safest pick for 20th place, and that is the team that seems to come up and go down every single time they come up. So I'm going with Burnley as number 20 to finish in the relegation zone. Despite, I think, their hard nosed defensive style, the past two times they came up, they went straight back down, and I want to get a lock in for one of the relegation teams. So I'm going to stick with Burnley as number 20. They barely made promotion, so they're the safest pick to pick for to finish last in the Premier League.
Yeah, I also have Burnley for 20th. 16 goals conceded in the championship last season, 100 points. But why do they have them 20th? Because they only scored 69 goals last season versus Leeds, who also got 100 points but scored 95. And Leeds also had better underlying defensive stats, right? So while they might be solid, they're definitely conceding more in the Premier League. And their attackers are unproven in the Premier League and frankly quite uninspiring. And Scott Parker's basically struggled historically in the Premier League despite doing well in the Championship. He came up with I think Fulham had an awful season, came up with Bournemouth, had an awful season, and I just dislike him because I feel like he got a sympathy vote for FWA Footballer of the Year in 2010-11 when we had Gareth Bale, Berbatov, Van Persie, Fabregas in the league, and I've just always been annoyed by him because of that. So Burnley 20th, sorry, maybe they won't be 20th, but I think they'll still get relegated.
Not much optimism for Burnley from either of
Yeah.
us.
In 19th, I have Wolves. They've had an awful start to the league, and this was something they had a couple of seasons ago as well. But that was with most of the big clubs in their first 10 games. I think at this point it's just relegation fight fatigue, right? They've finished with between 40 to 45 points, 46 points for the last 3 seasons, and I think they've gotten a little weaker every single year. They've got Strand Larson who scored 14 goals last season. Apparently, John Arias is a really shrewd coup, is what some people are saying. But I think they're weaker than they were the previous seasons, and I think just the constant wear and tear of being near relegation might just be a little too much for them this year.
Yeah, they need some Portuguese superheroes to bail them out. But I have a slightly different team at number 19. Again, I think I'm sticking to a lot of the teams that came up going back down. So I'm going to go with Sunderland. It's been a few years since they were in the Premier League. They finally made it back. But I think at the very last minute.
And who's making up your final relegated club?
And then for my final relegation squad, I am aligned in terms of picking the Wolves as the third team that will be relegated. Too much turmoil managerial wise, lost too many of their Portuguese stars to different teams, haven't had the worst start to the Premier League. So we are recording this after 3 match days. Uh, 2 goals scored, 8 goals conceded, not the start you would want, and doesn't really look like they're going to have any transfers to come and save them. so seemed like the safest pick to go down. And I also wanted to keep one of the newly promoted teams in for the longer term. So I have Wolves as my 18.
Looks like we have the same three picks for relegation. So for me, it was 18 to a Sunderland. Just vibes really. They have Xhaka, whom I rate, but I think the best way to summarize is Xhaka went there and he was like, "Oh, I want to suffer because I want to become a coach," which is not the most ringing endorsement. They were also the weakest of the three in the championship last season. They've had a strong start. They've gotten like I think a couple of wins under the belt in the first three games, and the Stadium of Light is going to give them a lot of energy, but I don't think that's enough to keep them in the Premier League, and I have them getting relegated. But I will say I think 15 to 20th this time will be, fighting relegation, and they'll be afraid of going down at any point of time. But I think these are the three that will get relegated. So Sunderland in 18th.
The last
Yeah.
team that stays
Yeah,
safe.
so the best of the rest, or sorry, the worst of the rest for me is number 17 is West Ham. Um, they were awful against Chelsea, and maybe that was like in top of mind for me. But in Jared Bowen, Callum Wilson, and Lucas Paqueta, I think they have some offensive quality that can keep them up. I don't think Graham Potter is the kind of manager who can do well in a relegation fight. I think he's deeply unprepared for that kind of scenario of where you just need to dig in and grind out results. The fans are also deeply discontent with their owners. It's an old team, it's an aging team with a bit of injection of quality. I don't really see the. It's not that they have enough about them. I think it's just that there are three more likely candidates. And yeah, at the front end, they just have a little bit more quality than the other three.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's the first pick we defer a little bit on. First 17, I am going with Fulham, as the Americans pronounce it. So with Mitrovic leaving a couple of years back, I think Fulham's attack has never been the same. Again, a team that watched recently play against Chelsea and struggle quite a bit. It seems like they are too dependent on some older stars, Raul Jimenez, and it just seems unlikely that they're going to get anywhere. So I think they'll be just skating the relegation battle. Could get relegated. I was thinking about switching them with Wolves, but decided to keep them at number 17.
I disagree. I think they were actually okay against Chelsea and should have won the game had it not been for the referee, maybe, or at least been ahead at halftime. But hey,
Yeah,
but yeah, who's number
I
16
will
for you?
change that. For number 16, I really wanted to do kind of a shock pick. I'm going to go with Nottingham Forest.
Okay, fair enough.
So, so they had the dream season last year. Everything fell into place. They were fighting for Champions League spots. It was, I think, one of the greatest underdog stories post Leicester, of course. Um, but this feels like the season where regression hits and regression hits hard, especially trying to repeat in the second year where you've lost a couple of players, a couple of key contributors like Brennan Johnson. They won't be taking teams by surprise. I think the tactics are also a little more kind of found out in the second season. So I do think we see this quite often where the first season a team gets promoted and does really well, but slowly they get found out and the wear and tear hits them. The loss of key transfers hits them. So that's kind of my big drop of the season is Nottingham Forest.
I think your bigger drop of the season is Fulham at 17th.
No.
um, in 16th for me, I have Leeds United. I think having such an insane season in the championship, the best goal difference since Fulham from a few seasons ago, I think they're the best of the promoted sides, and I think they'll just about stay up. So that's really all I have to say about them. I don't know much else about them. And in 15th, I have Brentford, right? They've lost Mbumo, Visa, their captain Nogard, and their manager Thomas Frank. But they've always had a solid defense, which they've managed to retain, especially at home. They've added Kelleher to that list, which is no bad thing. I really like Damsgaard as a player. I think, given their deep analytics driven approach, the fact that they've signed Nelson and Dango Uttara, I think they're the best of the relegation contenders for me this season, but they will still be sort of mucking about with these guys. But I think ultimately they'll be comfortable, and that's why I had them in 15th.
Well, yeah, so I think so. We have the same team in 15th in Brentford for almost, I think, identical reasons. Lost Buemo, who really, I think, drove a lot of results and for them last year. Great FPL pickup for the people who play FPL. And but this year kind of seemed to be lacking that one talisman. And usually, to escape relegation battle, you need that one real quality player, and it's kind of hard to pick that in Brentford's current lineup. They have enough in them that they should be safe from relegation. Um, and at my 14 is actually a very similar team. I'm going to go with Crystal Palace. So losing Eze, who really was kind of the creative linchpin of Crystal Palace, I think will be a bigger loss than is being accounted for right now. Palace has been very consistent over the past few years, but I think all the picking off of the Palace talent has to at some point come to roost. And I think this is the season where it comes to roost, where they've been a feeder now for so many of the other Premier League teams because they've had great quality. But eventually that always runs out, and I'm kind of gambling on this being the season where it runs out.
Okay, interesting. In 14th, I have Fulham. They're basically Arsenal light with Bernd Leno, who is very underrated as a shot stopper. They have Iwobi and Emil Smith Rowe. I think in midfield and defense, they have some good players. They have a quaint little stadium and a soft spot in my heart. What they don't have is a consistent goal threat. Raul Jimenez is steady but past his peak. You know what you get with Adama Traore, and Muniz isn't really ready to take over the mantle, I feel. I think if they had a proper striker, they could have cracked top 10 this season. But I think 14th is where they'll finish. Also, shout out to Tony Khan, who is living the ideal billionaire life. Like he was born into a billionaire family, runs a football club, and runs a wrestling promotion in AEW. Pretty much what I would do if I was born into a billionaire family with a silver spoon in my mouth. So props for doing billionaire kid life right, right? In 13th, and I think this is where I'll be wrong, but the only reason I have them in 13th, it's Bournemouth. Because they've lost pretty much their entire starting defense, right? That's it. I think because they've retained a lot of their attack, Semenyo and Clivert and Evan Nilsson are all really good. I think they'll be comfortably mid-table. They could go higher up because I don't know anything about their new defenders. I just thought, okay, I'll be conservative and put them in 13th. They could go higher up, but I don't think they'll go lower than 13th or 14th. And even then, it'll be like a very comfortable mid-table, right? I don't think they're going to be anywhere near relegation.
Okay, yeah, I think their attacking horsepower is definitely still there. For my 13th team, I think this is the highest you can really go with a team that's being newly promoted, and that's Leeds. I think going any higher is irresponsible. Leeds had one of the best championship seasons, and I think they'll continue it on in the now that they've made it to the Premier League. And they do have, I think, like that Premier League name recognition. Maybe I'm just like missing my youth, where Leeds was basically a top six side for when I first started following football, and seeing them go all the way into the darkness and the depths of being relegated to coming back up. I'm kind of rooting for Leeds to make this sustainable and to go back to the early 2000s. And I do think they have enough quality, and their kind of dominance in the championship showed that they are ready for this. And good manager, and should be able to, I think, stay up and also surprise some people this year.
Fair enough.
For number 12, I am also going with Bournemouth. So one position higher than you. Again, mainly the attacking quality is what drives Bournemouth's rankings. I think they'll be quite solid scoring, and I think scoring is always a little more consistent. So you have the same Semenyo leading the way. And Bournemouth has a lot of change in the defense, but I think that's more unpredictable. So it could work, it may not work, but I think there's enough stability in the midfield and attack that they should have a solid, safe mid-table outcome.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, fair enough, right? That's where I have them roughly. In 12th, might be a bit of a surprise for some. I have Aston Villa, Marco Bizot. Marco Bizot, right? Because I mean, Martinez was always a little overrated, but he's definitely got the personality to be a disruptive influence in the dressing room now that he's not playing and he didn't get his transfer. Because of their wages to revenue issues, they had to be clever in the transfer market. But what they ended up doing is get Jadon Sancho, whom I do not rate at all. This honestly feels like the Leicester squad from a couple of seasons ago where they kept pushing for Champions League and just fell short, and finally the squad just couldn't sort of keep up with that and it fell apart. It feels like Aston Villa is now on that trajectory. They have off field issues. They have had a poor start to the season, no goals scored yet. Internal strife. I don't think they've made good signings, if at all, too many. And they have a lot of reliance on Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers, the latter of whom might leave as soon as January, right? So I think they're going to do worse than last season, and I have them in 12th. He managed Arsenal, so I know that having faith in Unai is not a very wise decision in my opinion. In 11th, I have Crystal Palace. I actually disagree with a lot of what you said. I think they have a lot of positive momentum, and yes, they've lost Eze, but they've kept Gehi, which I think is huge for them. But they do have some off-field issues because Glasner, while he's a great coach, isn't very happy right now. Um, but they have quality, right? Mateta quality, Ismail Assar quality, um, Wharton, Hughes, Munoz. I think Dean Henderson. This is a pretty solid squad. I don't know how they'll do with European football as well, but I think they have a lot of positive momentum from last season. I think they'll just about scrape 11th. Um, Scraping and 11th aren't exactly the same thing, but it's all going to be really tight there, and I think they're better than Villa, or at least they have more positive momentum than Villa and Bournemouth for now.
Fair enough. For my number 11, I'm going for the Hammers, so West Ham. They did look quite pathetic against Chelsea, but I do think that between Paqueta and Jared Bowen, there's just too much talent to have them be lower. Um, they're, I think, two players who could fit into any Premier League team, and and they've been consistently pretty solid. Every single every single year, it feels like they finish between in this kind of range, and they will sometimes surprise you, look like they're going to make a run, but then always just finish just outside of Europe. So I see a similar kind of season this year as well. Yes, they've had a lot of losses, I think, to a lot of their linchpins over the past 2 3 years. I don't think they'll be. I mean, I think 2023 feels like a very long time ago now, um, but I think they're still good enough to finish mid-table ish.
Fair enough.
Now, I think comes my overreaction pick, perhaps, and that is at number 10, I'm going to go with Newcastle. So, losing Isaac, who I thought was potentially the best striker in the Premier League last year, including Haaland, if you just see how complete he is and how dominant he is, will be a bigger loss than people realize. They've had a horrific start to the season already. And I think there are enough variables that could go wrong that they could be kind of the big club that we see in 10th or even in the bottom half of the table for at least part of the year. I think they'll slowly recover as the year goes on, as they get healthier. But I don't really see. But I do think that they're going to be the big club that continues to struggle out of the gates and doesn't quite ever recover fully.
Hey, fair enough shout, right? In 10th, I have Everton. I was a fan of the OG Everton under David Moyes, and I think he's got a solid thing going in his second innings. They've got some really strong people in the back line, right? Pickford, Tarkowski, Brathwaite, Mikolenko, and Moyes is only going to improve them. Um, Dibbling is a smart pickup from Southampton, very promising, was quite promising last season. Grealish and India, I think, will provide the attacking flair. I don't know much about Tierno Barry, but he got 11 La Liga goals for Villarreal in his debut and only season, which is not bad at all. And then he moved to Everton. So I think they have every department sort of doing decent, if not well. And I think they've got a very, very good coach in David Moyes. And that's why I have them in 10th this season. In ninth, I have Nottingham Forest. Um, they have a strong defense and they have a counter-attacking style, which is what Nuno's all about. Um, keeping Morgan Gibbs White was big for them. Obviously, losing Ilanga is not ideal, but um, because they're a little too reliant on Chris Wood's goals, they're going to fall off from last season. I don't have them falling off as drastically as you do, just because I think there are other clubs which are in worse positions, not because of anything else. Marinakis and Nuno seem to have a very volatile relationship, and they're both volatile characters. And there was a fair bit of drama at the start of the season. It's been smoothed over for now. I don't know for how long, but if that explodes, they could slide way down. If that uneasy marriage stays, I think they'll stabilize in like mid table, right? 9, 10, 11 is where I see them.
Dream season last year. Okay, my number nine. I was thinking about going a couple of different ways, but I think this is where I also put Everton. Um, David Moyes, Everton legend. Actually, one of the few clubs where I associated the manager with the club more than almost any other player. David Moyes just represents Everton for some reason, and it was very weird to see him not be with Manchester United. Um, Jack Grealish, I think, is perfectly suited for this kind of
Yeah.
team. It was a disaster at City, but he's really made for this team where he can be the creative linchpin, kind of do what he wants, not have to deal with too much structure, but just kind of provide those game changing plays. And I think he still can do that, and he's already shown a bit of that this season compared to what he was doing at City. Um, I think Moyes just knows the Premier League really well, and he knows how to set up and kind of grind out some results. So he's made for kind of a mid-table, like a striving mid-table team, while not being made for Manchester United level of expectations and talent as well.
Old Manchester United. I think now,
Sorry,
now
yeah,
it'd be great for
that
them.
is true. Yeah, now I think they might miss him. And on that note, actually, for number eight, I am going with Manchester United. I love their signings. Like every time they sign players, I'm like, okay, that the signing makes sense. Like I love Mbuemo. I think Bruno has been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League for the past few seasons, as annoying as he actually is. Um, I think they do have quality, but they just at this point, it's been almost a decade since they felt relevant, and it doesn't seem to be moving in the right direction. And this is kind of the opposite of Moyes, where I think Amarim's quotes and his persona seem so pathetically bad that I think it could really just lead to like a locker room revolt, and you just don't see this team kind of fighting through and getting results. They did, I think, grind out quite a fortunate victory. But I don't see United coming into the top six. I think it's pretty clearly the death of the big six has uh, been led by United and by United.
I also have Man United in eighth. For me, it's the wild card. I think this is the team that can go probably as high as fifth or sixth, but and as low as 15th, 16th, 17th, right? Because I think the key is the manager, right? Ruben Amorim, I can't remember a worse manager or one that has left me more deeply unimpressed than this guy. His media handling for sure is the worst I've ever seen, right? The overly emotional prima donna style where every few weeks he says it's the worst Manchester United. Oh, I might quit. Oh, the players this. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like screams insecure, like needy girlfriend. And that's not what you want from your head coach, especially not for a club like Manchester United. His commitment to this 3-4-2 is hilarious because he's playing Bruno deeper and so on. I think they can do well despite him because they have some serious attacking talent, right? Mwomo, you mentioned the crown jewel is Bruno. I'm a huge Matthias Cunha fan. I wish we had signed him. I think they have enough firepower to do better than last season because they didn't sign enough for midfield. I think um, things are a little shaky, and I think their season really hinges on three things, right? Can they manage their midfield better in January? Can they balance it? Can they sign somebody? If and when they do sack Cameron, like the later they do it, the worse it can get. Or the most unlikely, he actually changes and adapts his system to his squad like a competent coach is supposed to do. Because like with a 4-2-3-1 with the players they have, they could be challenging for fifth or sixth because of the serious attacking talent they have. But you know, as long as they have this guy, I don't think United fans should really hope too much. And also, I think they'll also benefit from it from the turbulence that a lot of their direct rivals, which are these mid-table clubs, have had this season. Um, and wherever they finish is really just going to be about how soon Ruben Amorim changes or is changed. In number 7, I have Brighton. They've been a consistent upper mid-table team for the last few seasons, and Herzler is smug and annoying, but he's also a good coach. And because they've historically been a team that rotates their squad, Joao Pedro might seem like a big loss, but they actually didn't play him that often. That it's like, oh, we're losing one of our linchpin starters. They have some solid quality with Baleba, Rutter, Minte, and a lot of solid prem proven guys like Mitoma and James Milner and Dunk and Van Hecky and so on, right? And unlike a lot of other clubs around them, they've got this stability and this system, and they've got a lot of things going for them. So it's steady, but not spectacular, but smart operations, which has me seeing them, stay seventh. And I think that's where I see them finishing because of all of these reasons.
At 7, I have Villa. So I'm higher on Villa than you are. I think they've under Emery they've been very consistent as kind of that first team out of the top six, or kind of always flirting with that range. And I still love Ollie Watkins. I still love the talent. I think Sancho will look decent on Villa. I think he's also similar to Jack Grealish, where this kind of team where he gets to dribble around a bit, create a bit, is more suited for his talents. But yes, they've had a horrific start, 0 goals. So they have made enough, I think, changes, and they still have enough depth that I think they'll be fine. And they do have one of the best goalies, which always helps in Emi Martinez, now that apparently he's not going to Manchester United. So I have Villa in 7th, and similarly I have Brighton in 6th. Brighton is, I think, one of the most fun teams for a neutral fan to watch. Their style of football is extremely watchable. They're always kind of on the attack. I love a lot of their players. Actually, one of my favorite random, I would say, like the streets won't forget kind of players has always been Mitoma. Like, for some reason, he always terrifies me when he's on the ball, even though he's not really that high profile of a player. But I do think this is kind of the season where everything comes together for Brighton, and they push up a couple of positions higher than they usually are. But there's been a very solid infrastructure, and I think as a Chelsea fan, out of the big, apart from the big clubs, Brighton's always the team I'm most afraid of seeing, because anything can happen. Um, and I think this is the season where they kind of put it all together and make a push for Europe.
Hey, fair enough, right? I mean, I had them in 7th, so not far off. In number 6, I have Tottenham. I think Kudus, Javi Simmons, and Paulinia are great pickups. Could have been even better if they had Eze, but didn't work out. Um, Richarlison is the kind of striker that I think is very compatible with Thomas Frank's style. And if they avoid the injuries of last season, their defense and their goalkeeper are not bad at all, right? Um, Tottenham traditionally have had a very gung ho attacking style, which I'm not sure if Thomas Frank's style necessarily, what we saw in Brentford, will lend itself to that. But after the wild west of uh, Big Ange, I think they'd be quite happy with the pragmatism that Thomas Frank will bring. So I think they'll do well. And 6th is very well if you finish 17th last season. I don't know how their squad is going to be able to compete in both the Premier League and Champions League. But considering that I feel like a lot of the other mid-table teams have their own turmoils, and I rate their signings and their manager, I think they'll be okay and they'll finish in 6th. In 5th, yeah, in 5th, I have Newcastle. Um, I was very impressed with the way they played Liverpool. St. James's Park is one of the most intimidating grounds to go to, one of the hardest grounds to go to. And I think that's an advantage they will lean into this season. They also have that quality midfield of Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, and Joelinton, right? They have a settled squad, albeit maybe not as much depth as some of the others, but um, I think they have the pedigree, and all of their players are quality. Um, Gordon, Barnes, Anthony Ilanga, and Jacob Murphy, I think, are very strong wing options. Getting Wissa for Callum Wilson, I think Wilson, considering his fitness record, is an absolute upgrade. Prem proven, quality striker slash winger. I don't know much about Voltemade, but he rates Havertz, has a very interesting play style and profile, which I don't think is going to lend itself to replacing Isaac directly, but I think he can be the kind of facilitator, Giroud slash Firmino kind of hybrid that brings your Ilanga, your Barnes, your Gordon, your Visas closer to goal. And I think they will be okay this season, especially based on how they played against Liverpool and frankly how they usually play when Arsenal turns up against them. I I don't think they are going to struggle to sort of get to fifth, sixth, and I have them in fifth.
I think I'm assuming both of us will have the same top four, so no surprise with my fifth pick. It is the team that you picked at sixth, which is Tottenham. I think Ange was one of the most fun managers that the Premier League has ever seen, but also one of the worst at actually getting results, which, no surprise, led to him being ousted. And I love the talent Tottenham has. I think even losing Son and Madison for this year will be something that they can overcome. I think they have a very solid defensive talent, which Ange just completely ignored because he wanted to play chaos ball. So I think they're going to be very stable in the back, and they'll be able to grind out enough goals, especially with Richarlison up top, to get those close results. Like you, I agree. Thomas Frank is a great manager, and I think the way Tottenham is set up is also kind of built for him. Pace, very solid defensive players. They can hit on the counter. They're not expecting to like dominate and overwhelm the opponent. And I also think that just going from a chaos manager to a stable manager will lead to very good results. Uh, Losing Madison did hurt, especially before the season. But I think even to start off, they've had a classic Tottenham season, right, already.
They beat Man
So
City,
and a classic,
except for that
yeah,
one
beat
fucking
City
season
and
when we
then
needed them to. But okay.
exactly, and then they can go out and get dominated in the next game. But but I do see them as the first team out of the Big Four. I'm assuming that that you like me also have it as like the top four are a tier
Yeah,
above, and then it's kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
everyone else. Okay, so now getting into the top four. So initially, I was thinking about putting this team as number one. I kept shuffling the top four, but with how poor their start is, and I think not having Rodri yet, I am going for City as the fourth place team, which is for a Pep team always shocking, but at some point it always ends. It ends for everyone, and there have been vulnerabilities kind of cropping up in the City system, losing KDB, who's been the talisman for the last decade, not having Rodri for at least the first part of the season. Hopefully, he'll be back at some point. But even then, with his ACL injury, like DM is not the easiest position to play when you're coming back. It is a physically demanding position, and while they have oodles of talent or oodles of names at least in City, I think the responsibilities are not very clear this year outside of Holland and some others, where there's just so much interchangeability of players and positions that I think this year not having that structure will hurt, and they don't have as many of those absolute A plus players as they used to. So they used to have the A plus talent, and then you have so many names that you fit around. And I do think some of kind of the ego challenges are starting to crop up a little bit, which Pep somehow magically has been able to avoid for most of his career, which is I think one of his greatest strengths is you have such depth, but he's managed to always keep the squad aligned. I think some of this is creeping up, And I do think this is a bit of an indictment of Foden, who was supposed to be kind of that next great, absolute top tier talent, but he doesn't seem to have taken that full leap yet to have that consistency game in and game out. He is still young. And I think if Foden has a great season, this could be a very incorrect prediction and they could finish first. But you are splitting hairs at this point, and I do think City is kind of reaching the end of their pep run.
Yeah, where I agree with you is that the top four is the top four. Where I think there's two tiers where it's third and fourth are one tier and then first and second are another tier. And for me, the hardest was between third and fourth. Um, Fourth, I have Chelsea. If Levi Colville was fit, I think they might be third. I think if Reece James stays fit, they still might be third. For me, this is a strong fourth place. This is not looking over your shoulder at fifth, but focused on third and maybe even being a front runner for a while kind of fourth place finish. Ultimately, there are a lot of questions that need answering, which I don't know if Chelsea necessarily have the answers to right away, which is why I have them fourth, right? It's a young squad that needs a few things to go right. Sanchez needs to be consistently reliable. I don't know if that can necessarily happen. They need to have sustained offensive threat that is not just Cole Palmer. Joao Pedro has had a very promising start to this season, but we need to see if he can keep doing that. Estevao looks great, but again, new to the Premier League, young, fresh, exciting. Can he keep it up for a season? We don't know. I have marks over Delap because I feel like Nicholas Jackson was very promising and very good, and I don't know if Delap is necessarily an upgrade on him. And also, how will you rotate with the Champions League? Because last season you had a very settled first 11 and a Conference League 11, but you can't have Enzo, Caicedo, Palmer playing 90 minutes across all competitions. So where is the rotation coming in from? Lavia is great, but injury prone, and the others kind of need to prove themselves, right? A lot of these could happen, but for me, these are way too many question marks for me to say, oh, there'll be a serious title contender. I think they could finish third. And next season could be one where we say, oh, Chelsea looks like a serious threat for the crown. But for me, this is a very strong fourth place, potentially even third because of because of a lot of uncertainties with third place team as well. But that's where I'm going with Chelsea in fourth, just because number three, which is Man City, have a bit more proven pedigree at this stage for me. And the reason why third for Man City is it could just be City PTSD for me. Like having been with in two title races against Man City and the juggernaut, it could just be that. But I think they have some decisive goal scoring quality in more places than Chelsea, right? You have Haaland, you have Marmoush, you have Reinders, who has that pedigree in other leagues, which can edge out Chelsea. Um, I also think Donnarumma is a very interesting stylistic departure for City, but not necessarily a bad one because where he's proven himself, unlike Sanchez, is that he's an elite shot stopper. Maybe not great with his feet, but that is something that can save you points even if you're not playing very well. And I think City will have games where they're not playing very well this season. Um, I'm a big fan of Oscar Bob. He was going to have, in my opinion, a breakout season last year, had a bad injury, and he's looking like he's picking up where he left off from last season, and he's going to be a difference maker, in my opinion. Um, Rodri needs to stay fit and hit his old level for them to go from a third place fighting with Chelsea to a third place that is probably contending with the top two, which I think will take some time. But they also need either Doku, Savinho, or Bob to up their production and their best defenders to stay fit. And also, I think they're going to have some stylistic departures. The league is becoming more physical and transition heavy. How is Pep going to respond? But for me, some of these questions I feel like are more likely to be answered by City than they are by Chelsea at this point, and that's why the difference between fourth and third. Also, I just based on what I saw, I'm a big Rangers fan already. I think he's a fantastic signing, and I think because of that, that's just going to make that difference, right? Plus, when you have like elite goal scorers, right, you don't have to play well, and you can still get a goal out of nowhere, and that's what City have that Chelsea don't currently have, or don't have a proven one yet.
Team, which will be Arsenal. Um, this is basically punishment for being a top four Premier League team and still deciding to play like Burnley. Uh, Arsenal has, again, I mean, the past three seasons, I think clearly the second best team in the league, had multiple opportunities to win between challenging City and Liverpool, but just fallen short. Uh, but I think this year a couple of worrying factors are coming in, especially the Saka injury to start off the year. I think the margins are going to be very small between the top four, and having Saka with a knock, Saliba with a knock, Ben White I think is just back. Odegaard is kind of injured, was kind of out, and now I mean was out for a week. It's like some of those small recurring injuries to me will be the difference between who finishes first, second, and third. Who has the depth to stay healthy? Who has the depth to kind of overcome those injuries? And I think Arsenal has done an incredible job at increasing their depth. So to be fair, it's not like the Arsenal of I would say 3-4 years back, where it's like a first 11 and nothing else. Um, Depth has improved a lot. I don't think there's going to be a big gap. Like it is going to be a very, very tight finish. I don't see Liverpool running away the way that they did last year. But I have Arsenal finishing third. Basically, some nick, some injuries, and mainly punishment for playing like Burnley and just being corner FC.
I mean, if oh, you want me to respond to that? I mean, we don't. I mean, it doesn't even dignify a response. So you can go to number two.
Okay, and in number two, I will since I'm not going full homer, I will go with Chelsea. I think it is. This is the season. This is kind of where Arsenal was a couple of years back. This is going to be the breakout season for Chelsea. There's a lot more stability with the squad and the manager than there has been in the past. Maresca's system seems to be clicking, and they finally seem to have gotten some sort of balance of being the Cole Palmer team and the everybody else team, where you have games where Cole Palmer is not playing that well and the rest of the team lifts him up. And you have vice versa as well, where you have Cole Palmer to make those magical moments. I think in the past that wasn't really there. The key question with Chelsea is the center back position with Colwell out. I think that's the linchpin. If they manage to get maybe a January transfer there to shore it up a bit, that would help. But I think there's enough that around that it can be mitigated, especially since we have one of the Chelsea has one of the best DMs in the world, and I think very solid defensive infrastructure around as well. Reece James, of course, is always a critical piece with whether he's going to be healthy or not. But I think now there's enough with Gusto. There's enough depth in every position. Uh, a fair, I would say, or challenge to Chelsea would be last year was a lot easier, where you could play two squads exclusively. You never had to really worry about fatigue, which this year you definitely are going to worry about. But I do think there is enough depth that it can be overcome, especially with Delap and Pedro up front. I know Delap also now is slightly injured, but there is enough, I think, rotational quality in the squad. And I do see like some of the young players like Estevao making like a market impact in their first season, going from who we had on the wings the past couple of years, even though I do like Neto, but going from Sancho and Madueke and Nkunku sometimes playing some weird winger role to much more defined roles this year, I think will make a big, big difference. And I also think Chelsea is now flexible enough to play different styles. So you have kind of the hold up striker in Delap, you have the counter attacking, do everything, build up striker in João Pedro. So you have a lot more, I think, versatility than you had previously, where you just had Nicholas Jackson, who I think because of his end product being so random, like almost like you never know what's going to happen, a lot of the work he did around that got ignored. But João Pedro seems to be able to do all that work and also finish. So I think that ability to finish is going to be the difference between Chelsea having a solid run versus Chelsea finishing second. If I'm being completely unbiased, I would say Chelsea probably will do is more set up to be a great cup team and really drive do better in like a cup format than over the grind of a season, because I do think they are a little young and unproven. And when you need to get the like really push ahead in the last 10 minutes, they don't have the experience and kind of proven mentality that I would say Liverpool, City, and Arsenal have. Um, so there might be limitations there, but I think this is the breakout season. Maresca's team is seems finally fully aligned under him. Like he's managed to remove a lot of the elements of the squad that he didn't want. So this to me is where Arsenal was 2 years ago. Chelsea is now.
Hey, fair enough, right? Um, so first off, on the Conor FC thing, we actually had we played more attacking. We had more field tilt, more XG at Liverpool than Liverpool, and we
That's true.
completely nullified them. Wonderful free kick. And we tried. And what people forget is we brought on Odegaard and Eze when the score was nil-nil. It's not; those are attacking changes. We tried to win the game and we lost to crazy free kick.
That's
Anyway,
crazy free
so
kick.
for me, the top two are the top two. Like I think they're far and away the two best teams in this league and possibly the world. But here's the thing, right? I feel like to win um, a league, especially when you have four competitions and it's as demanding as the Premier League, you need to minimize the gambles that your squads are taking, right? You need you so obviously, right? And this is where I feel the difference between these two squads are, and that is why I have Liverpool at second. They've had an amazing window, they have an amazing squad, and they're most people's favorites, and very understandably so. The problem is, like I said, Premier League titles are won or lost on squad gambles, and I'll talk a little bit more about squad gambles when it comes to Arsenal because I know those in detail. But what do they have, right? They have two new amazing fullbacks in Kirkes and Frimpong, new number 10 in Words, two brilliant new forwards in Ekitike and Isaac. They're all quality. So it's just a matter of time for them to click, right? But gamble number one, little thin on attacking cover, right? Salah's direct cover is Chiesa, and he's going to go to AFCON this season. Gamble number one, right? Um, Sticking to gamble number one, actually, gamble number two is you have Gakpo, Isaac, and Ekitike sort of, playing for the left wing and striker positions, and they're all of quality. One of them gets injured, and remember, it's four competitions. Liverpool is not going to say, oh, no team says, oh, you know what, because we have a squad of X players, we're only going to focus on the Premier League and we're just going to throw the cup competitions in the Champions League. No serious athletes do that. They're going to go hard for every competition. Say one of them gets injured, you have Rio Ngumoha, 17 years old, very promising quality, but he's going to be someone who's going to get a lot of minutes. It's a gamble. It could turn out. But these are two things that they need to go right. Can Chiesa or can they balance not having Salah for a month? Gamble number one. Can Ngumoha take that level of Premier League minutes is gamble number two. Gamble number three is you have Konate and Gomez with patchy fitness records, and then your fourth choice centre back is an 18-year-old in Giovanni Leone. If they had gotten Gehi, maybe that would have been first for me. But this is gamble number three. If none of these gambles backfire till January, and they're still in and around, and they will be in and around, and they address any of these attacking cover or defensive cover, they could very well win the league. But this is where they're at right now. They need a lot of things to go right for them to be going deep in every single competition, and that more often than not falls on the side of disappointment. Liverpool themselves will attest to this because the season after they won their first league title, they had injuries to Van Dijk and Salah and they dropped out of the Champions League. Our problem after the 23-24 season, where we finished on 89 points, 2 points behind City, had we signed some of the people we signed this window, that in that window, we'd have been favorites and we'd have walked the league last season, but we relied on a very thin core squad and we needed everything to go right. The difference this season is we need a lot of things to go wrong. By your own admission, you're like, oh, all these guys get injured, then it would be a problem. That's the thing. So we need a lot of things to go wrong. The last time I felt like we had the best squad to really push on was when everyone else was a little weak, and this was the 2015-16 season, and Leicester won the league that season. I don't see Leicester or Leeds or Crystal Palace winning the league this season. For us, there is a lot that needs to go wrong. Saka's out. Madueke is come in. He doesn't have the end product of Saka, but he's a natural right winger and he's a fairly high quality right winger, right? Odegaard's out, we can play in Eze. Fantastic, right? Saliba's out, Mosquera came in Anfield and he was absolutely top class, right? Um, we have 22 players now, and we, like you said about Chelsea, we can play different styles. We actually can play different styles. We've always had the, and I think last season lent credence to this. Arsenal is a set piece and you know defense team, but that was because we lent into our defense because all of our attack was out. We had Havertz, Saka, Odegaard, all of these guys out. The previous season we scored more goals than any other season of our history. We've improved on that attack now, right? We've got more transitional attackers in Gyökeres, who I'm not convinced by, but transitional striker. As a creative maverick, Madueke, dribbly guy. Again, has to add end product, but he can beat his man. And that is a lot that you can do. And this is on top of us willingly making those changes. Arteta is trying for a more chaotic transitional style this season. It'll take a while to gel. But where we differ to Liverpool and City and any other contender is we have the best defense in the league, probably Europe, possibly the world. I said it. I, dude, like insane centre backs, best centre back partnership in the world. Calafiori, MLS, Timber and White is like an insane set of fullbacks, and this Hincapie guy was like the starting centre back for the invincible Bayer Leverkusen. Mosquera is crazy, promising, 13 million water pickup. I think we need a lot to go wrong for us to not win the league, because we can still grind out 1-nils and things like that, right? We can grind out when things are not going well for us. Liverpool will, play the basketball style, and it's really just about, can a free flowing attack retain and maintain that chemistry for an entire season and maybe overcome some of the gaps that may open up at the back? The defense is very good. It's not a shit defense. It's just a little shaky in pieces. Versus can what is frankly the most robust defensive platform finally have an attack that's good enough to match it. It doesn't have to be the best attack in the world. For the defense we have, we just need a good enough attack to compete. We don't need it to be better than Liverpool's. We don't need to be better than Madrid's. We just need it to be in the same ballpark, and I think we've finally arrived there. Stuff like with Saka, I'm actually less worried about Saka because I know that he's not going to be beasted for 90 minutes every single game because there's no backup. I know that we're not too worried about playing Madueke against Forest, even against City at this point, and he can take a month off and relax and come back. I honestly think Havertz coming back, because I'm not convinced by Gyökeres, is where the real game-changing level for Arsenal will be unlocked. But for me, it's about the fact that both of these teams are going to go deep in all the competitions. Like, they're going to clear the group stages of the Champions League unless they get massive upsets. They're going to, cup runs, Carabao and FA Cup. We don't know, but they're likely to, go fairly deep. I think we have the better squad to cope with at least the Premier League and the Champions League than Liverpool, then Chelsea, and then City. And because we've played together for so long and because of the base we've set up in terms of just giving nothing away, I think worst come worst, we will just grind out 1-0 wins for a while till our, injured players will come back, if injuries are the reason we have to revert to that style. So yeah, that's why I think to me, are favorites for the league. I understand why people would say Liverpool. For me, it's very difficult for me to not look at how we played them at Anfield and be like, I think we should win. Let me put it this way: I don't know if we'll win the league, but I think we should win the league. Like, theoretically, on paper, assuming normal distribution of injuries for everybody, like nobody's going to have all players fit for the entire season, but assuming it's a reasonable distribution of injuries across teams and so on, I think we should be winning the league this season. And I'm saying should, like, I genuinely think we have the best team and therefore should, and not like, oh, I hope and I think we should. Yeah, no, I think we should. Stuff like, oh, Arteta should leave if we don't win is bullshit. That's ridiculous. The fact that we've been competing non-stop till May for 3-4 seasons just shows the quality we have. And that is the greatest predictor of of some team going to win a title is the fact that they keep competing for them. The fact that we're competing season in, season out is testament to how good he is. He's going nowhere. But I think we should. This team should win the league this season.
No pressure at all on
Hey,
Arsenal by an Arsenal
pressure's a
fan, but
privilege, bro. Pressure is a privilege. You want to be
pressure is a
champions,
privilege.
you need to take on this pressure, and I am ready. Let's go.
Let's
Yeah,
do
yeah.
this. And then, no surprise, I have Liverpool as my number one team for the finish this season. Despite being a homer and desperately wanting to put Chelsea first, I wanted to keep some objectivity in, so I've kept Liverpool as number one. It was hard to make a case for me for anybody except Liverpool. I do see the argument for Arsenal; they've been knocking on the door, but Liverpool, advanced stats wise, was dominant last year, and in terms of if I just look at the pure quality, it seems like they've improved further. I would take Isaac over Nunez, obviously. Etiquette, yeah, and Verts as well coming into the attacking midfield slot. It seems hard to think that there'll be many games where Liverpool doesn't score multiple goals, and that just gives them enough of a margin of
Yeah,
error. Van Dijk is definitely not peak Van Dijk anymore, and there is some defensive vulnerability there, which I think wasn't there, uh, which I think slot system actually overcomes a lot better than what Klopp did. And as we are recording this after week 3, they already have a win over Arsenal. They It wasn't the most convincing win, to be fair. Um, but I do have Liverpool finishing first. My slightly hot take is I do think this is the end of the Salah as the best player in the Premier League season, where he's just been consistently dominant. I do think some of that transitions off this year, but I think they have enough. But there is enough talent on Liverpool that I don't see that being enough to knock them off the top spot. When I was doing like the quick XG deep dives of last year, Liverpool was just so dominant. And I didn't even think that they played that well. They didn't seem as dominant as they were, if that makes
it
any
does.
sense. While watching them, it felt like the gap between Liverpool and Arsenal was non existent. Honestly, I thought they were very similar last year if I just watched the two teams.
I thought we were
But
better than them last year. I think we're better than them this year.
yeah,
I I'll tell you what, the margin for me is this. Had Liverpool signed Gehi or had we not signed Eze,
yeah,
my prediction would be flipped.
as a, yeah, that's fair. So Liverpool, but I think, uh, but slot system seems to have unlocked something in Liverpool that even Klopp had not, where they now have that consistency and rigidity on top of their crazy
Yeah,
attack. Where in earlier seasons, as you felt like okay, they're going to score, but other teams have a chance. Here they put a stranglehold on the game, and then you just need one of the attacking talents to click, which they keep consistently doing. Sometimes it's a weird way to measure teams, but in the 90th minute, if anyone's playing, I'm so confident Liverpool is
I
going to
agree.
score out of
I
anyone.
agree.
It just seems like a foregone conclusion that somehow they're going to get a last minute
I
goal.
completely agree, which is why when I say I think we're better than them, but still the gap is this tiny, is because they have that X factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like fair, right? For me, it was like 1 and 2 neck and neck, 3 and 4 neck and neck, and then the rest. So those are our predictions, guys, but we're not done yet because we're also going to predict some of the key headline stats. So I think the easiest one, most goals scored in the Premier League this season, Liverpool for me.
Yeah, Liverpool. This was the biggest
Yeah,
no-brainer. Didn't even think
yeah.
about anybody else.
Least goals conceded for you.
I really wanted to go with Chelsea, but I still have to go with Arsenal. Again, I think it's not much of a debate, unless you shock me and say something
I
differently.
mean, I'll be honest. I think we're gonna. I think if given what I saw in the first 3 games, given that Rice is also playing deeper now, which is nuts, I think we could go even better than the last couple of seasons. I think sub 25 goals conceded. Chelsea's 15 goal record is insane. I don't think we can do that, but sub 25 goals.
I would say Raya is the relative weak link there. But that's just relative because all the other four are
I
so
mean,
good
like,
to
I
me.
think right now after Allison, he's probably the best keeper in the league. So I don't know. Um, Golden Boot.
Golden Boot. I'm just going to go with Haaland. He's just a machine. Like, how do you pick anyone except Erling
Oh, I've
Haaland?
picked Isaac because
Wow.
I'm
Okay.
like, you know what? I think he'll do. I think he'll just bang at Liverpool. I think.
Yeah.
I think he's the Salah replacement, the long-term Salah replacement as the superstar attacker. And he's gonna get the Golden Boot. Um, bit random. Most red cards. I have Granit Xhaka just because track record. Going to play for Sunderland. Going to make a few rash tackles. Going to get carded.
I have Christian Romero because I feel like every time I watch him, he's doing something
Fair
dirty.
enough.
And usually borderline red card offenses that aren't just tackles, but other dirty plays
Okay.
as well.
Young player of the season.
So, in a shocking turn of events, I am going to pick Estevao, who just signed um, for Chelsea. He's been the most exciting attacker we've had since Hazard. He has that same kind of flair on the pitch and ability to beat his defender. It really does feel like I'm watching 2013-14 Hazard again, who's my favorite player of all time. Um, the expectations are high, and I think Estevao could end up being even better than Copam.
Hey, I also picked Estevao. So, because here's the thing, I think the contenders are Rio Ngumoha, Estevao, Miles Lewis Kelly, Wanyeri, and Dauman. Dauman is like really, really exciting. I think he has a specialty of winning penalties, but he's 15. I think maybe 1 or 2 seasons. I think the same with Rio, right? He's a little too young to be getting regular minutes. I think out of these kids, Estevao is going to be the guy who's getting the most minutes outside of maybe Lewis Kelly. And I think he's going to maximize that. He's looked very promising. And it's not just, I feel like he has intelligence to his game, which is always a sustainable quality. It's not just, oh, young, exciting talent that's just, mesmerizing you. And once you figure him out, it's game over. It's a smart
Yeah.
player here. So yeah, I have him as the young player of the season as well. Um, for me, the last two categories, I have the same player, and it's also the reason why I think, um, number one is going to be number one. I agree with you. I think this is the season that Salah loses his crown as the best player in the Premier League, and who's going to take it up is the one who is the most like who's always been the most likely to take it up. Most FPL points and player of the season for me is going to be Bukayo Saka. Um, Last season he was looking insane till he got his hamstring injury. Now with an adequate supporting cast around him, if not just for quality, just like Eze is a defender magnet. He gets defenders towards him, and that's all we need for Bukayo. We just need him to have like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of one-on-one time with a defender in a game, and he produces. Eze is going to do that. Gyökeres, for all of his flaws, is capable of doing that, and I think this is just going to unlock this guy. He had a swagger and an arrogance to his game last season, which I've only seen in the very very best players in the world. Right, your Salahs, your Mbappe's. If you reference Arsenal players, your Sanchez, Van Persie, Fabregas levels of arrogance. I think he's going to bring it this season. He just needs to stay fit, and I think he will. So for me, most FPL points and player of the season, Bukayo Saka, and the reason why we will win the league this season. But yeah, last two for you, FPL points and player of the season.
I was not expecting both of those. I think I was expecting best player, but not most FPL points.
Assists.
For most Yeah, for most FPL points, I will go with Cole Palmer, and I'm picking him over Haaland, mainly because he's a
Yeah.
midfielder. So you get those bonuses, and he's going to get all the penalties and get, I think, enough assists to get past Haaland. And again, I do think this is the Salah regression season. For best player in the Premier League, I was very conflicted into where to go. Um, there are, I think, a lot of solid options, and there are players in like different positions who don't get mentioned because of the positions they play in. So like, how do I can I like I think Declan Rice and Caicedo are probably two of the best at their world in the world at their position, but you just never really say that, oh, this is the best player in the Premier League. I think like similar with like when Conte was good. You just don't look at certain positions and say, "Oh, the best player in the Premier League is a defensive midfielder." Um, so I will go for best player in the Premier League is going to be Alexander Isak, and that is why I picked Liverpool first. So I think we did have some similar
Yeah.
wavelengths there. But I thought he was incredible
Oh
as a
yeah.
guy. Like he is, as a striker, he can do absolutely everything. So fluid on the ball, incredible size, can finish, and now he's going to be with Liverpool with all of the infrastructure around him. Uh, I wish we had Trent still there, like instead of sitting on the bench
If
with
they
Real
had
Madrid.
Trent, they would have walked the league. Thank God they don't have Trent.
Yeah, he really wanted to go become a bench warmer,
No, no, he'll start, man. He'll start
but
eventually.
I
He's
know,
too good.
just yeah. But I have Isaac as the best player in the Premier League. I think he was one of those players where the quality is there, and now he's got the club to match the quality.
I agree. I mean, in the sense that he's gonna bang sooner or later. Maybe like a couple of months to bed in, but that's it, right? Like Isaac is
Yeah,
as close to like a slam dunk hit, injuries notwithstanding, that you can get from a signing. 130 mil is
right.
crazy, but there's a reason Newcastle asked for that money, and there's a reason why Liverpool, which is one of the best football operations in the world, thought that he was worth that. Um, yeah, like I said, I'm glad they don't have Trent. um,
Yeah.
yeah, guys. So that's our predictions. Those are our predictions for 1 to 20, predictions for all of the accolades of the season, or at least whatever we could think of. Um, we will revisit this particular video when the season ends to see how many of these we got right. And yeah, drop a comment, let us know what you think, and yeah, like, share, subscribe, hit that notify bell, and come back in May when the streets of North London are draped in red and white. Is the hope, is the dream. But as a wise man once said when we signed a Maverick number 10, let it all work out.
Or when Burnley wins the Premier League.
Hey, it has happened like a few hundred years ago. They are like top flight league champions. So put some respect on Burnley's name.
Cool. Signing off and come complain in the
Yep.
comments.
See you guys.
Stop.